Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Foreman. We have Devon Howard with us at Real. Devon, welcome.
Hi, Trip. Thanks for having me.
And we're excited to have you here. Let's talk about the Channel Islands Mid. One of the boards, if not the board, that helped blow up mid-lengths, and another one of your brainchilds of mid-length design, through the different shapers that you've been working with through your career. And the Channel Islands Mid is the latest one. Why don't you jump into it, talk about this board, and kind of what your thoughts were in developing it.
Yeah, this is from where I grew up in San Diego. We had a design there called the Egg. It's been around since the late 60s. Skip Fry designed it with G&S. And I'd say the legacy of that design had a pretty strong impact on some of the communities there. The board then became sort of a bit bastardized and turned into what we call the fun board. It was sort of associated with kooks, and it was not a cool thing at all, but there was a kind of a core underground group of guys that still rode them. Mm-hmm. I grew up riding Takayama boards, and I was really blessed to, Donald introduced me to it. Joel Tudor was developing really cool egg boards with him at the time. Mm-hmm. And so that's, for me, I got introduced to him in the mid-90s. And what I liked about these types of boards is coming from a longboard background, is when the waves got really good and the longboard maybe was a little unwieldy and I wanted to focus more on turns, I just fell in love with the types of lines you could draw on them. It's to me, it spoke to me more than any type of surfing. And then, over the years, unfortunately Donald passed away, but I was working at Patagonia at the time, and we did a board there called the Huevo Ranchero. I've gotten a board from Chris Christensen before, so just Tyler Hatzikian, and there's just a lot of input from a lot of folks. And then when I started working with Channel Islands, I think it was about 6 years ago now.
Yep.
Just for fun, we did a mid-length project. Mm-hmm. This is before COVID started and happened. So we took all that stuff that I've just shared with you and infused it with an Al Merrick sort of philosophy, and now Britt Merrick, who carries on all those philosophies, just the way that triplane hull that Al did in the 70s and 80s, this is sort of the modern interpretation of it. It's a more subtle version of it. Mm-hmm. A lot of us just call it spiral V or double barrel concave. There's lots of different ways to describe it. And that's a real hallmark of a CI bottom that you would have had in a lot of the shortboards.
Yeah.
So we married the CI rail and the bottom with some of the outlines I like. But in fact, we found an outline that Al had done in the early 70s. I don't know exactly which year, but we copied a template and outline he had. It was called the Huevo Caliente. And I just said, eggs were popular then. And even though Al was up in Santa Barbara, he was looking at what was going on. And if you look at the photos of Al's lineup in the 70s, there's tons of pictures of him with Dick Brewer influenced guns, Ben Ipa influenced stingers. I don't know what Al's influences were, but I'd imagine the San Diego Egg had an influence on him. Mm-hmm. So this is many years in the making. We didn't invent anything, but I think what we've done is we've refined all the things that I personally had learned and loved and enjoyed, and then we were able to infuse it with what Britt had learned from his father, and we just put it out, no expectation, and the thing just blew up, and people were kind of tripping on it. I don't know why exactly. I can't explain it. Other than, you and I talked off camera, the board just works. I don't know. Yeah. It's just I can't explain it anywhere. It works. We could talk about all the bells and whistles on it, but I think it just is the right balance between sort of a really traditional board, which sometimes those things can be a little hard to ride. They look cool, they're sexy, but they're hard to ride.
Yeah.
And then on the opposite end of things, a high performance shortboard for some people, it's too much rocker or it's not enough volume. So I feel like this is a nice blend in between those two worlds. And I think that's a large segment of surfers are realistically at. But those surfers also don't want to be held back. They don't want to have a board that's dumbed down, just so they can get through their feet. As Britt says, anything we do at CI, we want you to be able to do your best surfing. So that's what went into this. And if you can go online and look at videos and see it, even former pro shortboarders like Alex Gray, who'd never ridden a board like that.
Yeah. He has a 6.6 or a 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can find the video,
ripping on that thing.
Find the video of Alex Gray, maybe you could insert it in this. that was his first time on the board, like his first or second wave. And just look at how a shortboarder was able to translate his surfing to that board. It was very intuitive and familiar feeling, and I think that is the success of this board, is being able to bring those two worlds together in a seamless way.
It's interesting to hear your thoughts on where it should go in the quiver versus, I think, like what the mainstream belief is. Where it should go in the quiver, because you're looking at it as a better wave board than your longboard, where like a lot of the shortboarders are coming into it, and whether they're aging out of shortboards or they're just looking to do what, like Alex is never going to age out of shortboards. He's just looking to get, like, ride something different, you know?
Right.
And so a lot of those guys and women are maybe getting it for their small wave board, but you're using it for your better wave board. So it's interesting to hear those angles. But like looking at why it works, I mean, it's not even a guess. You have to just point at your experience, like on that type of board, just because of all the work that you did with Takayama and with FCD, and then now Channel Islands, and putting all of that experience into this design. Yeah. When the mid thing exploded, like there was a lot of people like, oh, and me, I'm going to do a mid, you know, and and they just kind of made it on the computer and put it out there. Like they didn't have, you know, tens of years of experience on it.
There's a lot of, like, even Al Merrick has told this to Britt. Al always felt the number one thing to get right is the rocker. So when I look at a lot of mids, and look, I'm not here to critique anybody, but when I look at it, I already can tell through the rocker it's going to have some challenges. And so you got to start with the rocker. And that's the thing that I learned. All those boards I talked about that I learned from, like, some of them had too much rocker. Like, they work great, but there was like, man, there was just too much rocker. And some of them had too little of rocker. So this was like, the learning curve was finding the right balance so that you can go as fast as possible, but when you go to stomp on the tail, you know it's going to be there for you, and it's not going to buck up out of the water, and the fins are going to release, and you're going to be, you know, you don't want to be going over the handlebars when the waves are really good. This particular board was never designed for small waves. I think that it's good to point that out, because if anyone's going to buy a board, I don't think you should ever BS people and try to push them into something that it's not really made to do, because there are so many choices. And I think when people sell you the idea that this is the one board for everything, of course, we could all make every board work and everything, but is that ideal? I don't think that's the best way to go. So coming off of I'm truly a longboard surfer. So when the waves are head high and under, I like a traditional single fin log. I did used to ride 2+1s in the 80s and 90s like everybody did. But once I learned that this was an option, I didn't really need the high performance longboard. I'm not against them at all. Actually, they're quite fun. I like them. Right. But I was able to sort of split things in two here, where, okay, now I'm getting the best out of everything I love about longboarding when it's head high and under on a single fin log. But when it's shoulder high and over, or the waves have some real push to them, now I'm able to eliminate all that extra area because I'm not too concerned about nose riding. And then I can get all the things I like out of the middle and the tail of the board. And so for these things to work at their best, they need a bit of room to move around. Okay. And if you do get one of these, and let's say you live in an area where the waves are smaller most of the time, but you want to have it when the waves are really good, I would recommend getting 2 sets of fins. So get the 2+1 for when the waves are good, and then when the waves are small, just pull out the side fins and put in a proper single fin. Okay, a little bit bigger. I would go with, like, on this board, I'd go with like the 8-inch CI fin we make, but there's plenty of other fins out there you can choose, obviously. And what that single fin will do is similar. You and I have discussed another model called the triplane hull, and what we discussed in that video that we did was it's a tighter turning radius when it's really small, and it's technically a pivot turn. So if you do get a mid and you're like, hey, I just want to have more range, it's not that you can't ride it in small waves. You just really need to adjust the fins. So take the side bites out, do a single fin, and now the board will work. There might be better boards, in my opinion. I think a fish or I think a log is better when the waves are really small. But I've met people like, no, I only want to ride mid-length. I'm like, okay, well then you're going to have probably 2 sets of fins. Yeah. Like if you're traveling and you're single board traveling, and it's easy to throw an extra fin. Well, then you have a one board quiver. Exactly. You know? I think you can totally pull that off. And these boards comfortably to guys our size, I think comfortably, no worries. You can push the board up to double overhead, no problem. It could go even bigger, but I think it needs to be clean. What can happen in really big waves on these boards is because you don't have the rocker of like a gun. If it's really choppy and there's a lot of surface tension, you got to keep in mind that the rocker on this, it's low for a reason. It's low so that we can catch the wave. It's so we can do a high line and trim and have maximum speed. But this only ever becomes a liability when it's really big and really bumpy. I was at Haleiwa one time and it was way, way overhead. I was like, I got this. And I was going down the wave face and I saw these like 1 foot chops coming up the face. It just ate me alive and ate shit in front of everybody. It was the most embarrassing thing. I was like, okay, there is a limit to this board, you know?
Was that where your, that travel quiver that you posted that was not these? Is that where that was born? Was from that wipeout?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm still paying for it with my neck. But yeah, this board's a lot of fun. If I could only ride one board the rest of my life and I had to make that choice today, it would be this board. Yeah.
And what, I don't think we covered sizing it yet, but your height and weight and what size are you riding?
Yeah, I'm 6'1", 190 to 195. My favorite size used to be 6'10".
Okay.
I'm also a dad of 3, and so even just in 4 short years, I've already added foam. So my favorite size now on the daily is 6'11".
Okay.
I'll sometimes go up to 7'1" on this. I have a winter board version that's a 7'1" that's like a little mini like step up to me.
Okay.
It sounds silly, that's just like 2 inches. But if you think about 2 inches on a board this size, you're adding a little bit of thickness and a little bit of width. It makes a pretty big difference. And so I'd say on your like head high days, a foot or 2 overhead, 6'11". If it's going to that close to double overhead range, I just push it up to 7'1". In general, if you're a good surfer, I think around 10 to 12 inches over your height, if you're a pretty good surfer, is a good spot to be.
Okay.
If you're sort of intermediate, I think 14 inches or so is a good place.
Okay.
You know, that goes for most mid-lengths. I think for most brands, I think that's a pretty kind of safe jumping off point.
Let's talk about fins, because you guys make like a pre-packaged fin set for it, like
Sure.
With the center fin and the side bites,
Yeah.
which I think is a great idea because it's always a mind melter on the 2+1s. Like you decide on the board and then you turn around and you look at the fin wall and it's like, oh gosh,
Yes.
you know, like how do I size all this stuff? But you guys do all that work for you.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that fin set and like kind of where the weight break is on which way to go.
Yeah, you make a great point. I don't know why there aren't more 2+1 fin sets that match. So for my whole life, I was always using these mismatched setups. With some of the early Takeyamas, they were glass. It was a thruster setup, and it was like big, 4.5, 4 3/4 side fins.
Yeah.
But the center fin was a box fin, so I had to go, find the fin. And then over the years, I was always mixing and matching. None of the templates matched. I was using a Wayne Rich fin for a long time that I really liked, the power fin. And so the CI mid is probably influenced a lot by the Wayne Rich power fin. So I rode the 6.5-inch version for a long time. And from a surface area standpoint, used that as a jumping off point and just sort of gave them a little bit more curve. I wanted them to not be a pivoty fin. I wanted it to be a flowy fin for those deep turns. So I'd say it's like a moderate rake. It's not like an extremely raked fin. It's a medium, sort of moderate base fin. And when it comes to sizing, we just make it easy. We keep the center fin at 6.5 inches.
Okay.
And then based off of your weight, we have 2 different choices of the side fins. So if doesn't matter how tall you are, if you're around 160 pounds and under, I recommend the 3.6 side bites. If you're above that, go with the 4-inch, and you're just going to get more hold and more drive. Now that's just a guideline. If you're a big guy and you like a really loosey-goosey fin setup, go with the 3.6.
Okay.
Conversely, if you're sort of a lightweight person but you want a stiffer, like more resistant feeling, like never skipping or sketch, go with the 4-inch side bites.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, looking at that fin set, it like that 6.5. I think like whenever you say a number, people only look at the number, right? So they're looking at that 6.5, and they might be like, "Whoa, that's like really small." But it does seem to have a good amount of area. Like the whole way through the fin. It's not like a super high aspect like
Yeah.
stick. You
Yeah,
know,
and
it's got
that's
some
why-
chord length to it.
Yeah, and that's why I like to give credit to Wayne Rich, because I rode his fin for so long. And what I liked about it was, he calls it the power fin, is the bass on it was what really is, the engine. It really works really well. If you have a narrow base one, you get a looser board, but it doesn't drive out of the turns as much. And what also was helpful is we made the fin set, and I was in Australia in the very beginning of the board, and I got lucky to have a session with Neil Purchase Jr. If anybody knows who that guy is, he makes incredible designs, mid-length boards, and he
also an incredible musician,
insane surfer. And I showed him the ratio, and I kind of told him what the surface area was, because he's put a lot of work into 2+1s, like Dave Parmenter. There's people out there who've put a lot of work into the ratio of a 2+1.
Yeah.
And in all fin setups, there's a diminishing point of returns in either direction. And so, we hit these numbers. And I'm proud of our fin, because it doesn't look like anyone else's fin. We really worked a lot. We got these French curves out and played with many versions of it. Chuck Ames, in fact, helped us at True Ames with some of the early kind of R&D on it. So it was a really fun process. I think it's a timeless fin setup, and I believe, pretty soon, sometime next year, we're going to come out with a 7-inch version and a 7.5-inch, because we've had people request they want to try a bigger version that they could put on 9-foot, 9'6" high performance longboards.
Right. Yeah, I mean, looking at the fin set, it's definitely a unique. There's just a lot of thought into it. It's a unique center fin. It's a unique kind of ratio of the sizes between the, because a lot of times people are on a 7, 7.5, 8-inch center fin with some micro side bites, and yours is closer to being equal, but not. It's not near equal, but it's closer to being equal, more thruster-ish.
Yes.
Yeah, you look at it, and there's really nothing else out there that's like it, and it looks like it works for sure.
Yeah, there are people out there that really like those small nubs, and I think there's something to those, but that's someone that still has 1 foot in the single fin world. They really want that more free feeling on the face, and they're not ready to commit to what at times could be drag. I don't think the CI Mid has a drag issue, but I've ridden some boards if the side fins are big and have too much toe or too much cant, which is a whole other thing that we didn't even get into, which is super important. The boards can feel draggy. So we spend a lot of time on the angle. They're not towed in a lot, which is I feel is a good thing. I don't want to give away too many secrets here, but the thing, I don't want to claim it's perfect, but it's kind of, it's we're talking about the board, how many years have gone into something. I'm not a shaper, I'm just a test pilot, and I've just learned all these things, and I've learned a lot from the people that shape the boards. And so it's nice in the role I play as I ride it, I give feedback, and it's a kind of a word game. They start asking you questions to unlock. If you said something was boggy or it felt kind of dragging, they start asking questions. And half the time it's going to point back to what's going on with the fins, and the rest of the time it's what's going on with the rocker.
Yeah, I mean, putting together all your experience on this size range of boards, and then adding in the Channel Islands input into it.
Yeah.
And then also the proximity of Channel Islands to Rincon as a test track, which is you could basically skateboard there.
Yeah.
Is it's a great combination to make a good board.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome, Devon. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Channel Islands Mid. If any of you out there have any questions on the Channel Islands Mid or would like to order one for yourself, either custom or stock off the rack, you can always reach us at the shop, 252-987-6000, or look us up online, realwatersports.com/surfing. Thanks for tuning in.